Welcome to The Mandate, a show featuring intimate conversations about men's mental health, masculinity, and identity. We bring you stories to inspire you, experts to guide you, and the tools you need to become the man you truly want to be. It's time to sit back, relax, and open up. Live from the Mandate Studio in Austin, Texas, here's your host, Adam Hofmann.
Welcome everyone to the very first episode of The Mandate. I am your host, Adam Hofmann. I'm a regular guy just like all of you, but something has been calling my name and my soul to really tackle this issue of men's mental health and masculinity, and it's time to go for it. So you're all here wondering, what the heck is this mandate thing? And that is a great question. But in order for us to really get there, we've got to start with my journey with mental health as an adult. And it started for me probably 8 years ago now, where I got diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and I kind of didn't know what that actually meant, which was strange for me because I'd always had this fascination with the brain and how it worked, and I minored in psychology. I was really interested in all of this stuff. My family has dealt with different aspects of mental health, from addiction to anxiety, depression, panic attacks. So it's not something that was totally new to me, but it was new to me in the sense that I didn't think that it could ever be me that would be struggling with this. And so, as you'll hear a little bit later when I talk more about this, I was really stuck with this, like, I've got a doctor who's telling me that I'm depressed and I'm anxious, and that just didn't feel right. But then the more that I was open to it, the more that I was curious about it, and I started getting more help and talking about it, I realized that there were a lot of other people who were hurting and just didn't know what to go and do about it. And so at that time, like I said, probably about 8 years ago or so, I was like, something needs to be done here, but I didn't know what. I just went back to my normal routine, was taking care of myself the best that I could, made some big changes in my life, but I always felt like there's something to be done here and there's a group of people that just really isn't being served, and there's actually a lot of them. And what it took was for me to go on this journey of myself, where recently, the pandemic, with work, I found myself in another dark place again, and I felt myself sliding. But this time around, I had the tools, I had the connections, I had the network, I had the people, the support systems to make sure that I didn't go as deep as I've gone in the past. And it was in that moment of darkness that I really found this opportunity. And as I was talking with a friend, I said, well, what do you feel called to do? And I said, well, just keep having these types of conversations. I've had a couple of really pivotal moments in the last couple of months that inspired me to start this show, The Mandate. And the first one was I was listening to a podcast about the difference between masculine and feminine energy, and how there's been a lot of masculine energy in the world for a long period of time, and how there's now this rise of feminine energy, and we can see it all around us. There's so much great stuff happening with equality and women's rights, with racial injustice and racial equality. There's a lot of this stuff that's kind of bubbling up or getting stirred up, if you will. But this one in particular was talking about masculine and feminine, the patriarchy and the matriarchy, all those types of conversations. And what hit me was when the guy said, and men are really going to struggle with it. And it just hit home for me because I flashed back to my whole life and how I felt like I haven't always been able to be me, because there's been some parts of me that maybe they were bullied in middle school, or it was something that I didn't understand why I was expressing myself this way as I was growing up. Then it translated to me as an adult and in the working world, and the way that I want to lead wasn't necessarily the traditional, power, strength, directive, masculine leadership figure. It was something that was more empathetic. It was something that was more vulnerable, something that was much more emotional than I had experienced so far in my career, and I didn't really know what to do with that. And so in this moment of listening to this one single podcast, I just had this flashback of all these moments in my life where I felt like I wasn't really able to be me because of this definition of masculinity that I had grown up with, or that I was taught. And so that, combined with my passion for mental health and really shifting the stigma of it being okay to go and seek help whether that's therapy, whether that's helping yourself, whether it's finding the right support groups, medication, all that stuff. I really wanted to open that up, and so I started thinking about it. Then a couple weeks later, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she was telling me about some work that she was doing, and I told her that I was really inspired. I wanted to go and build this event around helping people reinvent themselves. And she goes, I think that's a great idea, but I really think that you need to help men right now. Men are really struggling. They're really challenged right now to learn what it means to be a man, a father, a leader in today's day and age, and there's no place for them to go. There's no place for these conversations to start happening. And that was like the second piece of the puzzle that fell in place for me. So I started listening. I started opening myself up more to this possibility of men's mental health, masculinity, men need support, conversations, and I started talking to more of my guy friends about it as well as my women friends about it. And what I kept hearing from both sides is that there isn't a place for these conversations to happen. And I challenge that and say that there are places for these conversations to happen. They're just happening kind of hidden or in the shadows. You're not going to find out about these groups that you can join unless you're invited, and you're not going to get invited unless you're open. And so now you've got this whole problem of, well, how do I actually find these things if it's something that I need? And so that's where the mandate came together, was that I love having these conversations. I love opening up deep topics with my guy friends, with my women friends, and everybody in between, to be able to have these types of discussions around mental health and what it means to be a guy, so that we can be better humans together. And so the mandate has a couple of meanings. One is a mandate in that men have to take their mental health seriously. We have to really, really look at our identities, about who we want to be, and open up the possibilities for us as men in how we can really express ourselves and be great leaders, be great friends, be great fathers, great partners, and so on. It's also a mandate in the sense of men coming together to have these intimate and vulnerable conversations like you would on a date with somebody new. So this show is here to celebrate vulnerability. It's here to create a community and really a sense of belonging for anybody that this resonates with. Men, women, transgender, people who don't identify as anything. Everybody is welcome here in this community as part of this show. And it's here to help people have the courage and to build the strength for men to be someone that they love so they can play a better role in the world, whatever that means for them. Whether that's becoming president someday, whether it's leading their company, leading their community, being a better father, a better partner, or just a better person that they can love and be compassionate about. So each episode is going to feature different conversations. Some might be with a friend, some might be with another guy like you and I. We'll have experts on here, we'll have therapists, we'll have scientists, authors. My hope is just to have a full range of spectrums of these conversations to bring you different perspectives on these topics. But today, as you can imagine, this conversation is with myself, because I felt like it wouldn't be fair to start having these conversations with everybody else if you didn't know a lot more about me. I'm sure that I'll share a whole lot more in sessions to come, but for now, I just wanted to give you a general sense of who I am so that you know who you're talking to moving forwards. My journey with mental health, I always thought started as an adult, but the more that I've thought about it leading up to the creation of the mandate, I realized that it's something that I've really struggled with, or at least it's been in my life, whether I've struggled with it or not knowingly, since I was a kid. And so I just want to tell you my story, and that's where we'll start. So I remember I woke up one morning and my head hurt so bad that I could barely breathe. And I didn't know what was going on. My chest was tight. I felt like somebody was punching me in the gut, twisting my insides. I didn't want to go to school, but I just had to. I didn't really have a choice. I didn't have a fever. Nothing else was really wrong. And frankly, I'd already told my mom too many times that I felt sick and I couldn't go to school. And so this time I just had to tough it out. I had to suck it up and deal with it. So I went to school. Next day it happened again. And so finally we decided to go to the doctor. And this is something that's happened time and time again as I was growing up. And I had wonderful parents. Like they're more than happy to take me to the doctor, more than happy to take care of me, talk about this stuff. But when I was growing up, it wasn't necessarily something that people immediately thought, oh, maybe there's something else going on here. It was let's go through the the normal progression. And so I had my heart tested when my chest was hurting. I had my lungs examined when I felt like I couldn't breathe. I had my stomach imaged. I've had my stool sampled and everything. But what they kept coming back with was like, my heart's healthy, my lungs look good, my weight looks good, I'm fit, I get good grades, I'm good at sports, I have friends. What the heck is the matter with this kid? And it got to the point where I just had to deal with it. And that was that. There wasn't really a better answer. And so each time that I got checked, it made me feel a little bit better to know that, people were looking into it and I wasn't crazy, but it never fully went away and I never really knew what was happening. And so what I later discovered was that I was never actually sick. Well, I guess I was, but I was afraid to go to school. And that was because I was getting bullied at different points in time. And those feelings were of anxiety, of my body responding to this fear that I had of actually going to school because I thought that I was going to get beaten up, either physically or emotionally. And I didn't want to be teased. I didn't want to be bullied. And then, eventually got to the point where I was afraid about getting punched again. And, I started getting into fights at school and things weren't going well. And it was like, well, what's the matter with Adam? And, I got called everything that you would maybe expect, or maybe you don't expect this because you didn't have to deal with this, but, called a fag, called a homo, a pussy, a bitch, suck it up, quit being a baby, all that stuff. And I was like, I don't understand why people are teasing me and torturing me. And like I said, I got good grades, I had friends, teachers liked me, most of the kids liked me except for those couple kids that decided that they didn't like me. And it was only until I got older that I really got to understand why. And that was really upon reflection as an adult, realizing what I went through as a kid was a lot of this early mental health stuff, but it wasn't necessarily treated as mental health. And sure, bullying is a whole nother topic that we're definitely going to cover here, but for me, that's what it was. And I don't blame my parents or anything for that. At the time, everything felt like it was about stress. And so yes, maybe Adam's stressed about school. He's stressed about, being bullied, but the treatments were never, journal or meditate or go to therapy or anything like that. It was like, here, take some medication. So I grew up and I'm just kind of dealing with the stuff. I move on, learn to let the bullies, they're going to do their thing. What good am I going to go and do? Trying to fight them back. Like, I'm just going to stay the course. And the best way to move past these people is to prove them wrong. And so, I was always comfortable with myself, even though I wasn't always okay expressing it. And so that was something that I think stuck with me was I started to be what I thought everybody wanted me to be so that I wouldn't get bullied. And that certainly has led me to some great things, but it also meant that there was a huge chunk of my life that I didn't always honor who I was or the person that I wanted to be. I had to kind of do it in secret or downplay it. Turns out I was a really great photographer. I really liked to sing for a while, but I dropped out of choir and I stopped doing musicals because guess what? I didn't want to get bullied. And so upon reflection, this is when I realized there's so many things in my life that I just stopped doing because I was afraid of what other people were going to think. I was afraid of the emotional pain that I would have to go to, and then the physical manifestation of that that would ultimately come with it. And whether or not I knew that in the moment, that's certainly what it feels like in reflection. So fast forward, I'm a professional, grown up, I've got my own job, went to college, great, out on my own, and I get to my first startup and had an amazing experience there until I just really ran myself into the ground. And as part of this 2.5 year experience of starting a company from nothing and really getting it going, I threw everything that I had into it. And my identity was this company. And so when I left it, I kind of didn't know what to do with myself. And along the way, I had also been neglecting myself so much that there was a lot of work to do that I didn't fully realize. And I had built up a whole lot of other parts of my life to support me as this startup that was going on without fully understanding what was going on there. And so I was in a relationship that I didn't want to be in. I had neglected friends, for a longer chunk of time than I would like to imagine. Thankfully, a lot of them are still with me, and we've been able to reconnect. I wasn't taking care of myself. I didn't have good coping skills, and so I get out of the startup, and I think like, oh, I just need some time off, and like I'll just get back out. I'll go start the next thing, but it wasn't happening, and so finally, once again, physical stuff wasn't feeling really good. I tried to self-medicate with marijuana. It's like, oh, well, smoking weed's supposed to help with, these feelings that I have right now, so I'll do that. And what started off as like, a little bit here and there turned into smoking multiple times a day. And anytime I'd feel anything that made me uncomfortable, boom, I'd just take a hit. And that was that. I was, just on to the next thing. But that meant that I was constantly medicated, which isn't something that I wanted. So finally, I went to go see a doctor. And I'm happy that I saw the guy that I saw. I'd been seeing him for a little while, and, he was just a real straight to the point guy. He'd work with athletes and other founders, and so I trusted him. And after we were talking, he's like, hey, I think you're dealing with some depression and anxiety right now, and I don't think this is a long-term thing for you. I think you just need some help. So how about you try some antidepressants? And I was like, whoa, antidepressants, pills, what are you talking about? And like I said, my family had taken them. I had known other people who had taken them that had had good and bad experiences, but I was still super skeptical. But like I said, I trusted this guy, and so I took them, and sure enough, they helped me get to a more baseline. I noticed that my lows weren't as low. I could still have my highs, but like I just felt more even, more balanced, if you will. And so that I took those, and then his next recommendation was like, why don't you start seeing a therapist? So then I had to go through this whole process of finding a therapist. But oh my God, that's nothing to be taken lightly. And we'll have a guest on later to talk about how to find a therapist, what that whole process looks like, why is it so hard, stuff like that. But I lucked out, talked to a couple people, and found one lady, Beth, who just changed my world. And so in working with Beth, she really helped open me up to all these different techniques, all these different tools that I started, putting in my toolbox or my work belt, whatever your style is, that really helped me be a more even person, to the point where I could start going off the antidepressants. I felt good enough that I had these skills, I had these habits built up that would allow me to not have to take the medication, because I was having some side effects from those medications, which we'll probably talk about at some point in time. And so we worked together for almost 4 years and really made a huge impact. I felt like she went from my therapist to a coach, to a teacher, to a mentor, all along the way in helping me get to where I needed to be for that stage of my life. I ended a 5-year relationship. I took a break from startups, although I went to another very ambitious company, and just started making all these other big changes in my life. But she just helped me get things dialed in. And so that was an amazing experience that once again really highlighted the importance of mental health. And I thought to myself, like, man, more people need to be able to get this type of support. So this also feels like a really great place to pause and just acknowledge how fortunate I've been in my life, in that I didn't have a super traumatic upbringing. My parents were always middle class, maybe upper middle class at times. We didn't have to worry about food on the table. I was always able to go to school. I've had tremendous amounts of privilege as a white guy growing up, and I know that is not always the case. And so while my story might not be representative of a large majority of people, my goal in talking about this is that we all have our own unique story, and I want those stories to be able to come out. I want them to be okay. I want us to be able to talk about this stuff together with curiosity, with empathy, and with vulnerability, so that the more that we can all get to know each other, the more that we can sort of lock arms, if you will, and help move everybody forwards. So that's that. So that brings me to where I am now. And like I said, I just had another experience of professional burnout. This time, coming out of it, I created a little bit more space. I had some more better tools. I had a good support network. And so I feel like I just had a really accelerated path for me to help figure out what's next. And for me, this is the mandate. So what can you expect from the show? Well, every single week, we're going to bring you one new episode, at least, maybe more. So you can join us live, and we'll be on Facebook, we'll be on YouTube, hopefully some other platforms, or you can watch the recording, which will be here on YouTube. It'll also be on our website, mandate.com. And you can also watch it, or sorry, not watch it, but listen to it as a podcast. So it'll be available there. So every single week, I'll have at least one guest on, and we'll talk about things like depression, anxiety, mental health struggles. We'll talk about parenting. We'll talk about finances, relationships. We'll talk about sexuality, intimacy. I mean, we're going to try to cover everything under the sun that is of importance to guys and our identities and our mental health. And that's what I want to bring, is this holistic picture. And so each episode is going to feature one of those conversations. Sometimes it'll be with another guy just like me, and we'll talk about, being guys and if it's hard, when it's easy, what we're struggling with. And then we'll pair that with conversations with experts who can shine light on the science, the research, and all that good stuff to pair with those stories. So we can always have this balance of personal experiences and vulnerability with why the heck is this the way that it is, and what can we actually do about it? What does science tell us? What's researched? What can we trust? Where is the truth? And that's my hope, that we can bring these together. And so bring those to you every single week, and those conversations should open up all kinds of things. Would love for any questions that you have. You can always send them to us ahead of time. Go to mandateshow.com to see how to do that. You can leave comments and we'll try to pick those up for later on. But we just want to make these as engaging as humanly possible to bring you a ton of value and help you navigate your life with some new insights, possibly friends, and certainly resources to go about doing that in a healthy and sustainable way. So I've got a big vision for us men out in the world, and I'm getting started with the Mandate, which is this show. My goal is to build the world's largest community of men committed to taking their mental health and identity seriously. The world so needs us right now, and we're doing a decent job in bits and pieces, but we're also doing a really terrible job in others. Men need to step up in ways that we haven't stepped up before in the past. We have to create a future that is diverse, that is just, that is equitable and abundant for all humans. We've got a lot of work to do, and first, we've got to go do some work on ourselves. And that's what this show is for, and that's what this community is for. And so I'm taking on this challenge by starting up to open these conversations between men, between other people that care about these issues, so that we can really convene and catalyze other parts of the ecosystem that are already in action together to go and make something really great. So I see a future where any man can join a conversation with a peer or a group on a topic that they're wrestling with. It's not just this one-time show. It's a place where there's always on conversations for you to come to. And maybe some days you listen, maybe sometimes you contribute, maybe sometimes you're the one that's telling your story and leading other people. But in any case, you feel less alone and more empowered to look inside yourself and ask really what you need right now. And then you have a place to go and get it. And so we're going to surround you with trusted tools, resources, and experts to make the progress that you want to see in your life, and create that impact in the areas of your life that you really care about. So if you want to be a better husband, we got you. If you want to be a better leader, you're in the right place. If you want to be a better dad, yep, you're also in the right place. And if you just want to be a better human, you are 100% in the right place. So every single week, you can show up exactly how you are, because you're already enough. You're definitely worth this time and energy that you will invest in hanging out with us every single week. And so to all of you who are out there listening and watching this very first show, I'm here for you. I love you. Let's go make this happen. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Mandate with your host, Adam Hofmann. It's time to do your part in raising awareness of men's mental health, shifting the stigma, and having a positive impact on someone's life. Share this episode with a friend who could use some support and post it on your social channels. Have questions or thoughts? Text Adam at 512-980-3935. Find more episodes, upcoming live shows, and life-changing resources at mandateshow.com. Your mandate is to take your mental health seriously. Be courageous, stay vulnerable, live authentically. Until next time, y'all.